Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Shawn. On this episode, we are going to be digging into the Cubs' big week, as well as talking about some of the turning points of the White Sox as well. Maybe even dabble into the NBA draft lottery. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You could see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season's over now, but that shouldn't stop you from heading on over to icehogs.com. Check out the hat, shirt, t-shirts, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, I believe it was last week that we were talking about going into this week, the barometer that we are, the mark that we set for the Cubs was they had to win at least 3 out of 4 against the Marlins. Mm-hmm. And they needed to take at least 2 out of 3 against the Brewers.
Well, looky here. They did just that.
Well, who's a looky Lou? That's exactly what they did. And they did. It wasn't always so pretty.
No, it wasn't. I mean, that first series against Miami, there were some really grindy, tough games against a really, really terrible Miami Marlins team. And I mean, you kind of almost expected that to somewhat happen. You figured it was kind of a trap series. You figured that the Cubs, after just beating the crap out of the Cardinals, might struggle a little bit against the team they probably shouldn't, just because that's kind of what happens in these situations with this Cubs team. But they still took care of business. They won 3 of 4, 2 walk-offs. I mean, it's not really how you win them. It's whether you win them or not. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, the games against the Marlins, you're right. They weren't pretty. And we talked about this before as well. It's that this was a series where it's a team that they should beat up, but it's a series that's sandwiched in between playing your 2 biggest rivals right now. And so it's really easy to overlook a team like that. And Jed and Theo talk about how they circle trap games on the schedule, but that doesn't, just because you circle it and you're aware of it, sometimes it's just natural to, after you get up a big up from sweeping the Cardinals and you're preparing mentally to face a team that, owned you at the end of the last season. You just overlook it. It's human nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw that game against the Marlins, the one they lost, the first one where they blew it in the 9th inning. And now it sounds like Pedro Strop was having some injury issues, so that probably was a part of that really struggling 9th inning. But still, I mean, they had that game, if you remember, they scored 3 runs, I don't think without even recording an out, or maybe they recorded 1 out. But it looked like that was going to be a total laugher. And even when they didn't get more than 3 runs, you're figuring Cole Hamels is on the mound. He's been absolute lights out at Wrigley Field. He's been lights out as a Cub in general. You thought it was going to be a really easy win, and they ended up losing in really frustrated fashion. Then the next 2 games, like I said, they were close, grindy, and needed walk-offs to win. I thought it was actually kind of funny how Jason Hayward, that home run he hit to win it, that walk-off, how did that get out?
I don't know. It's funny. That went out, but then the one in the 15-inning game a couple of days later where Baez hit it, and I think it was like the 12th maybe, and it didn't go out. It went off the wall for a double.
Yeah.
When he had the leadoff double and didn't score a run. And I'm like, how did that not go out? But then Jason, it's a tricky place in the to have a win pattern.
It's just funny because it just looked like he just flicked his wrist, went the opposite way, and then it nestled so nicely into that basket. Like it was almost like a kid dropping his Easter egg into his Easter basket. Just it nestled so nicely in that basket.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. And Cole Hamels didn't pitch a bad game. There was, he had some struggles in there, but for the most part, I thought he looked, if you look just at the box score, where he's 6 innings, 3 earned runs, 5 hits, not his best outing, but he got in a couple jams, but for the most part, he was doing all right. And you had Edwards came in and pitched a perfect inning. Brad Brock came in, pitched a shutout inning. And then Pedro Strop just, I get it. There was probably an injury, but man.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly.
Didn't record an out and gave up 3 runs.
And then the play by Kyle Ryan where he didn't throw home. And the game would have been tied if Brian hit that home run in the 9th to make it a 1-run game. That was super frustrating.
Yeah, there was a lot of frustrating moments. And the worst part, though, is it was the first game of that series. It was right after, a 7-game winning streak and sweeping the Cardinals.
And you destroyed the Cardinals the night before. That was an absolute blowout.
And you just laid an egg, not only an egg at home against the worst team in baseball, arguably. It was to end your winning streak right after a big series win, and it knocked you out of first place.
Yeah, exactly. And you're thinking when you lose that first game, at least maybe just me and some other people, not everybody, but when you lose that game, you're thinking, oh God, is this how the series is going to go? Are we going to just totally lay an egg this whole week against this awful Marlins team that can't even be called a major league team? I know we talked about this on the show before, but when we play the Marlins, I don't know who half these guys are, and I follow baseball so closely. Peter O'Brien, who are these guys? I see Starlin Castro, I see Neil Walker, Cub Killer, I see Martin Prado, I see the
Curtis Granderson.
The corpse of Curtis Granderson.
What do you mean? The guy is batting. He's got a weltering OPS, a 641.
Though this question came up, and I'm going to ask you this. Let's say it's down the road in August. Would you be opposed to the Cubs? Because I don't think Curtis Granderson's going to spend his whole time in Miami. I bet you they're going to DFA him, or some team's going to claim him off waivers or be traded for a pack of gum. I feel like in the last 2 months of the season, if the Cubs are, still contending, still rolling, I'd say get Granderson to kind of be an Austin Jackson type player on the team. What would you say to that?
What does Curtis Granderson bring to the team, though?
Well, I think he brings veteran leadership. I think he could still play a solid center field. The bat's not there, but I mean, if you put him in situations where maybe you want to align your defense a certain way, or just to be like a 6 outfielder, if you want to call it, I don't know. I wouldn't be overly opposed to that, even if he is kind of a walking corpse at this point. I just feel like if you look at the past few years, Curtis Granderson has spent some time on contending teams, and they valued it. And you wouldn't give up anything.
No, you wouldn't give up anything for Curtis Granderson. I'm looking up his stats right now.
I mean, the stats are pretty bad. There's no question about that. He's 38 years old. But I mean, you remember Austin Jackson when he was a Cub in 2015.
Yeah, so he only played 19 games last. Oh, no, sorry, he had Toronto. So Yeah, 245 last year, batting average. Not good. When was the last time he had? Jeez. He's a career 250 hitter. Is he just only play good against the Cubs?
It seems like it. He's had the power. He's had the walkability. He's never been a high average guy. I know that, but again, this would be just like a depth move, not like, oh, here's your starting center fielder, Curtis Granderson. I'm just saying, if they wanted to try something like that, I wouldn't be opposed to it, as long as he's not playing every single day. But
is there anybody else available? Yeah, right. That type of player, the player you described, is yes, that would be nice to have. I don't know if you necessarily need the veteran leadership because, you've got a pretty strong ball club, and although everybody's fairly young, there's young veteran leaders like Jason Hayward, like Anthony Rizzo. You've got these guys, and you've got other guys that are, it's just like a tight knit. You don't need. It's not like they're young kids that don't know how to win. They know how to win, and so I don't know if you need that leadership per se, but a veteran bat and a solid center fielder for defensive purposes, all for it. I think you need that guy. Is Curtis Granderson that guy? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to judge a guy because, on the numbers this year because he's on a dog turd team.
yeah, that's to say the least.
And who knows if he had a real major league player batting in front of him and behind him, maybe he bats better. But I agree with you that that type of player would be nice. It's just I'm not sure if Curtis Granderson is that guy. And it's still early enough in the season. Maybe that changes. Maybe come closer to the trade deadline when we're in July, he looks a little more desirable. But I'm not sure if I'm biting at this point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's not something they're going to do, nor something they should do. I'm just as an idea, way down the road, way too early idea down the road.
Yeah,
I'm talking like August, September.
Yeah, maybe. And it also depends on what your health looks like as well, because you might need that same guy, but be an infielder.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, that's late July, early August is when things get really interesting with veterans that you can claim off waivers and all that kind of stuff. That's when it really gets interesting. I mean, you have the trade deadline, but then it's like, well, after that, and this is going to be like the last year of it, there's always guys. I mean, last year we claimed Murphy waivers and traded for him. I don't even remember what we traded for him, but
I seem to remember when I was younger that the waiver wire at the end of the season, nobody ever, it was for you to put veterans on there just to get feelers, but nobody ever did anything with it. And it seems over the last few years that people have actually made some moves on it. What's your opinion on the waiver wire deadline, trade deadline?
Here, I'm just so used to it. It's hard to imagine baseball without it, if that makes sense. I think it's good for the sport, for the fan, because everyone is so locked in on that day. Everyone is closely paying attention to Twitter or Facebook or, I don't know, watching MLB Network if you're home or listening to the radio. For a fan, I think it's really cool and it's really fun to watch. Whether you're contending, whether you're selling, you're watching and seeing what's happening. I mean, I remember when I was younger, high school, going into college, the Cubs were just in the beginning of their rebuild and we were selling off and all that stuff, but I was still really invested in it. So I've always liked it.
I mean, I feel that way about the actual trade deadline, but because, that's everybody sitting there. I remember being at a party and I was out of town. I was in Boston, and it was a friend of a friend's house. I was having the party, and I was like, "Can I put on ESPN so I could like put it on mute just so I could watch the ticker at the bottom and then see what happened?" Like, that's awesome. But then the waiver, deadline.
Oh, you're talking waiver deadline.
Yeah, the waiver deadline.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get it, and it's another one where I'm like, it's part of the game, but it's I don't know. I feel like it's a little shady backdoor-ish, and I would probably prefer just have one single trade deadline. This is it. This day in July, this is it. Done. No other, trades after this.
Okay, yeah, I thought you meant non-waiver. I'm sorry, I misheard you. But yeah, I feel like some waiver moves end up being kind of significant, but I know what you mean. I could, give or take it, I guess. Again, I'm accustomed to baseball being that way, you seeing that kind of thing. But I know what you mean. It's funny is because when you claim somebody off waivers and then, if you get them and you have to do the trade, whatnot, that's when you see some really obscure rumors come out from like weird sources. Because I remember last year when the Cubs made the Murphy trade, some random Twitter account said, "Holy crap, the Cubs got Daniel Murphy," like the day before. And everyone is like, "What is this crap?" And then suddenly there it is. I feel like you see that sometimes during that. You see it before the trade deadline as well, obviously, like the Jose Quintana trade. But, you see it both times. So it's kind of interesting. But I know what you mean.
Yeah, the waiver deadline, it's weird. Like I was saying, it's something that's sort of become a thing over the last several years. I mean,
sure.
It's, before it was like, when I was younger, it was like, okay, they put this guy on waivers and that's it. Yeah. Maybe that means that they want to trade him in the offseason. They're just kind of seeing what the market's like. But nobody ever went. And now it's like there's some significant moves, and it is later. So teams that maybe were on the fence, maybe we can get back into this, and they go on a 8-game losing streak, and we're like, all right, nope, we missed the trade deadline. Maybe we can do something. But I don't know. I think it dampens the actual trade deadline,
sure,
a little bit, because you're like, okay, well, here's the trade deadline. But if we wait a few more weeks, we still could get a deal done. And I feel like it dampens it. Whereas if there's a hard deadline, this is it, then teams are, hey, if you really want to get rid of this guy or you really want to get this guy, this is your only chance.
Yeah, it would be more of a trade deadline if that happened. There's no question about that. If you didn't have it,
I think you would see more blockbusters. I think it would be more exciting for the sport, to be honest.
Yeah, it very well could be.
Before we get back into the Cubs, I can't remember. I was driving over the weekend, and I heard somebody on the radio that was saying that their idea to fix baseball would be to shorten the game or the season to like 82 games.
Yow.
As a baseball lover, I can guess what your opinion is, but I want to hear your opinion on it.
82 games? I mean, first of all, the record books would be just completely out of whack. Second of all, if you're going to play 82 games, here's my question. Do you have them more or less consecutively like now? Just you start later and you end earlier? Or are we going to do like hockey where you play maybe every 2-3 days?
I would imagine you'd have room to space it a little more, but you could also shrink where, tighten up the dates. So you start late May and you end a little earlier. So you're bypassing a lot of the early and late season bad weather, but you still have, since you're cutting half the season now, you can probably space it out a little more too.
Yeah, I mean, I get wanting to shorten the season a little bit because of weather reasons, season, and I mean, 162 games is a lot of games. But that's pretty drastic. That's really drastic.
Yeah, I mean, at first I was like, that is literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But then I thought about it for a minute, and I was like, it would suck. But here's the points where I think it could be beneficial. But where it's beneficial doesn't really benefit me per se. So it's why I sort of didn't see it at first. But here's the thing. Kids that are younger than you don't like baseball nearly as much as they like football and they like basketball. I think it's a safe thing to say, right?
I'm sorry, what was that? You faded out a second.
Oh, I would say the kids that are younger than you, teenage years, real early 20s, baseball is not nearly as important to them as the NFL or the NBA.
I think as a whole, that's probably accurate.
And I would go so far as to say that baseball is a regional sport.
Yeah.
You watch your favorite teams. The days of people going, I want to watch whatever game is on TV. I don't think that's a big thing anymore.
Not as big as it once was, probably.
Yeah. Whereas if you've got, Lakers, Trailblazers, people are going to tune into that, even if they're in Oklahoma or New York, or if it's, the Rams and the Saints, people are going to tune into that. Those are more, national, global sports. So, I mean, if you make the games more important individually, maybe that makes the younger kids more interested in the game. Because now, even me, I'm a huge baseball fan. And if something's going on and there's a Bears game, I'm like, why did somebody hold an event during the Bears game? What is wrong with them? Even with hockey where there's 82 games, I can sit down and go, all right, well, I can prioritize things and move them around because I know there's only 2 games this week or 3 games this week. But with baseball, if something's going on, I'm just like, I'll just miss the Cubs game, or I'll watch the highlights later on, or I'll DVR and just catch, fast forward through it, or whatever the case. It's not a big deal if I miss it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
So I just feel like maybe if you make less games, each game is more important, that you're going to have more teams in it because there's not going to be as much, runway to run away from a division. And 2, each game is more important than more interest in each series. So I can see some pros in there, even though I'm a baseball more or less purist, and I would much rather just see it the way it is.
Somebody else on the radio proposed a few other changes which are interesting. I don't know if we talked about this one on the show before, but somebody brought up the idea of have ties after like 12 innings because of the game that was 15 innings, the Cubs game that ended on the Contreras home run on Saturday, where they were clearly miserable and it was just awful. Would you be in favor for that? I don't like the idea of ties in baseball, but I feel like if you reach like the 14th inning, then I wouldn't be as opposed to it. I wouldn't go 12. I'd go a little further. I'd go 14 innings and then cut it off.
Yes, I'm all for something, whether it be a tie, or if you did kind of like hockey where there's a non-game like, the shootout where it's not something that's in the regular game. If they did something like that where they, to determine a winner after so many innings, I'd be fine with that. I just, I feel like when you have a game like that, it can really take a toll on your team after that, because it's you use up your rotation. I mean, your bullpen. Sometimes you have to dip into your rotation, which throws your rotation off. Guys are going on short rest. Guys get tired. It's brutal. And it really throws everything off for games going forward, because, manager, that's part of what they do, is they have to manage their pitchers. So if you're like, all right, I'm planning to go with this guy today because this guy needs a day off, and then suddenly you're like, I'm going 15 innings. Sometimes you have to go with a position player to pitch, and it gets ridiculous.
Remember the John Baker game in 2014?
I remember the Jose Canseco game where he pitched and hurt himself.
Well, I don't remember that, but that was probably before my time.
That was before your time, but that was a big deal then, because at the time he was a superstar. It wasn't the shell of Jose Canseco. It was Jose Canseco. And people were like, now you got star fielders throwing, pitches in these meaningless innings and getting hurt. It's stupid. And I'm right there with them. Like, as a baseball fan, at a certain point, you're like, okay, extra innings. But then you're excited. But then at a certain point, and I don't know what that defining point is, but it just crosses from exciting to, oh my God, just end this game already, please.
Yeah, the game on Saturday between the Cubs and the Brewers, I was watching all 9 innings, and then I had family plans in the city. I don't know if you've ever been to Italy downtown.
I have,
but
I do. I like Italy. My wife used to work like a couple blocks away, and we would go there quite a bit before my kid was born. Yeah, it's good. I like it there.
Yeah, there are pasta areas where we like to go. We made reservations there, and
yeah, the pasta is amazing.
It is. They used to have this mushroom pasta that they don't have anymore, which was really sad because we loved it. But they still have their prosciutto pizza, which is very good.
Yeah, I used to, when I still worked in the city, we would go over there for lunch and get to the panini station.
Yes.
And then get some gelato, the gelato.
Yeah, all good stuff. But we had reservations there to go to eat. And the game was still going on when we were sitting down. When we drove into the city and sat down, the game was still going on.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Like, I didn't see most of the game. I was running errands and things like that. And but I listened to it on the radio. I was in the car. And, I'd run in and, do something, come back in the car, be like, geez, this game is still going. And then I was like, what inning is it? I had to check my phone because they don't always say what inning it is during the broadcasts, every minute. So I'm like, 14 innings? Somebody just win this game already. And, at one point, was it like bases loaded or 2 men on or second and third or whatever? And
they had 2 men on, nobody out, bases loaded, 1 out, and they didn't score in either of those innings.
Yeah, I was talking about the one, I think, was it the inning that Baez hit the opening or the leadoff double, and then with 2 outs, it was Addison Russell up there, and I was like, man, I really want the Cubs to win this, but I really don't want it to be Addison Russell that wins it.
And he struck out.
Yeah, he struck out, and I was like, that's good. He struck out. He looked bad, and
he looks terrible.
And the Cubs got the win still with Wilson Contreras crushing one.
Yeah, that was a no doubter too, and because not only did we sit down and they hadn't won, we even ordered our food and got our food before they won. So we leave in the 9th inning. Traffic was terrible going into the city. We had to get to the city. We had to get upstairs. We had to get our table. We had to get our menus. We had to wait. We had to decide what we want. We had to wait for the waiter to come to take our order. Then we had to wait for our food to get ready. Then we had our food come to the table. And then we started eating the food. And that's when they finally won, just to put it all in perspective.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And like I said, I don't know what the cutoff point is, but when game goes into the 10th, you're like, oh man, this is exciting and nerve wracking. And then at some point, it just goes from exciting / nerve wracking to, I don't care, just end the game. I'm so over this.
And it was in such shitty weather. It wasn't like a bright sunny Saturday. It was cold and rainy and wet.
Yeah, I don't know how many people, because I was listening on the radio, how many people were even left at the game? Like 7?
Not a
8?
lot. Not a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't Arctic, but it was with the weather. It just was crappy out. It was like chilly and damp and rainy, and just like, why would you want to be at a baseball game for that many innings, for that many hours? Like, just go home. Like, I don't blame everybody from going home. The players wanted to go home.
Oh, you could see that video of the dugout, and it looked like Joe Madden was just thanking the Lord that he didn't have to stay another minute there.
Yeah, I don't blame him for that at all.
No, not at all. Here's another question that I had that this same person brought up on the radio a few days ago. If you're going to have ties, and I've brought this up before, and I've kind of made my own system, my own hypothetical system. Let's say you have ties. If you're going to do something like this, wouldn't you rather go then to a more seed type playoff format? And let's say you get rid of divisions. You just get rid of them. You play the same teams the same amount of times, and your top few seeds make the playoffs. Your bottom seeds have to play like a first round, like wild card game or series. The top seeds get like a bye, and you kind of do an NFL / NBA / NHL type deal where it's seeding, tiebreakers determine seeding, that kind of thing. Would you be okay with that? Because that is one big change to baseball I could get behind.
Absolutely. It's baseball. I always say, I feel like every other sport gives the better opportunity for the team with the best record to have an easier path to the playoff or to the championship. Not baseball. It just feels like a level playing field. And it's kind of annoying because you're like, all right, well, you have because baseball doesn't know how to transition from a marathon of a season to a sprint for a playoff. They don't know how to transition it. And I think if you the top 2 records in each league should get a bye, like a legit bye.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. And I mean, you kind of have that now with a wild card game, but that's a wild card game. That's one game. And the tie would be a nice thing to have too. If you have tiebreakers like you have in the NFL, I would really like to see that in baseball. I also like the idea of having a more spread out schedule. So you play the Dodgers, you play the Cardinals, the Brewers, the Reds, the Pirates, the Phillies. However, as equal amount of times. I still like interleague play though. So I would want to keep that around because I think it is good for baseball. It allows people to see parks they haven't seen before, thus, increasing revenue and attendance and whatever. But I feel like if in your own league, you should have more of an even playing time against all the teams because look how uneven the divisions can be.
Look at the division the White Sox are in. It is a garbage division.
The White Sox could win that division with like 81 wins.
The Cubs division
very well could.
The Cubs division has 3 really good teams. And
yeah.
And odds are at least one of them's not making the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Remember in 2015 when 3 of the National League playoff teams came from the NL Central, the Cubs, the Pirates, the Cardinals? The thing is, you have other divisions in the National League, that are going to be tight races. And with those tight races, you'll have more teams in the wild card. I mean, you can have one of these teams in the NL Central win 90 plus games and not make the postseason. It could happen. That's how tight it is.
Yep. And baseball is weird too. It's a very streaky sport.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because over the season, you really, because it's such a long season, you get such a good representation of who is the baseball does such a good job of determining over a long period of time who is the best team, who is the worst team. And what happens is the playoffs are who's just hot for that moment.
Right.
And it's tough. It's tough sometimes because, like, I mean, you know, they talked about it a lot with the Braves. Is what did the Braves win, like 14 divisions in a row?
Yeah, and won one World Series.
Yeah, and they were the most dominant team for such a long time. And they just, you know, regular season, they were absolutely dominant. And then in this short little sample size, somebody was slightly better than they were in that small sample size. And it's a funny thing. It's a lot of luck. See, when you in the NFL, I guess the NBA crowns the champion. The best team wins the NBA finals.
That's exactly what they said on the radio today as I was driving home.
And I would say the NHL, for the most part, the best team wins the NHL, the Stanley Cup. I would say that's probably second. The NFL gets a little fluky because, you know, you can get a hot team in there and somebody just has one bad game or
your kicker kicks one
and done. Yeah, double doinks. So NFL gets a little fluky, but, you know, for the most part, is you usually get it right. But Major League Baseball, it's not a rhyme or reason. You have the regular season champion and then the World Series winner. And regular season champion they get nothing. It's a consolation prize. And it's so it's weird because it's
granted the last few years the best has won, but overall, yes, I agree.
Yeah, and it's nice when it works out that way. Like when the Cubs won it,
especially in 2016.
When the Cubs won it, they were absolutely the best team. You know, the last couple of years, they've gotten it right. But there was 2000 whatever 8 when the Cardinals came out of nowhere and won 06. And they
won 83 games.
It was
and they
garbage.
Freaking won the World Series.
Yeah, it was garbage because they had guys on fire at the right time.
Look at 2011. Look at the 2011 Cardinals. Look at them. You know the reason they got into the postseason was because of us? I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I do.
But a Carlos Marmol blown save is what got them in the playoffs, essentially. We gave them that World Series.
Yeah, it's when things like that happen, it's frustrating because you're like, okay, I get you won the World Series and you can't take that trophy away from you, but it just doesn't feel legitimate because you're like, you weren't over this long period of time. You were not a very good team.
You know what was a really, really interesting few years to look at? Look at 2003, the Marlins. And then look at 2004, the Red Sox and the Cardinals, that World Series when the Red Sox broke the curse and Cardinals won over 100 games and got to the World Series. It was just kind of a tale of two. And that's what you've gotten in some of these years where you have years where like, okay, some of the best teams are in the World Series. And then you'll have the Marlins winning the World Series. And then you'll have the 06 Cardinals winning the World Series. And you'll have, what's another example? I mean, look at those Giants teams. Those Giants teams that won 3 World Series within 6 years, kind of like the Blackhawks. They never dominated the regular season. And they played really good teams. The 2012 Tigers were probably favorites to win the World Series that year. They swept them. That's how baseball is. The 2010 Rangers were a really good team. Granted, so were the Giants, but I thought that was going to be a pretty good series. The Giants ended up dominating that one. And then in 2014, you had the Cinderella Royals versus the Giants, who, again, didn't dominate the regular season, but they got in and they got hot at the right time in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, but at least that team proved the next year that they were not a fluke, and it was, they just came on at the right time. So I'm a little more lenient on that one. But yeah, there's some of those like you're just like fluke.
And I don't even want to call the Giants a fluke, because they're not by any means. It just goes to show that they were never a powerhouse in the regular season. They just got what they had to do done to get in the postseason, and then from there, boom.
Yeah, and it just, they rode Madison Bumgarner. Like, they were like, oh, this guy pitched yesterday, let's pitch him again. And tomorrow, too. In a 5-game series, we'll pitch him 4 times. It felt like that's how it was. And he just won. Nobody could hit him.
Yeah. I mean...
Speaking of Madison Bumgarner, did you see he had released his no trade?
I did.
The teams that he could veto, and it was all the playoff teams that might trade for him.
Yep. That's kind of interesting when you think about it.
Yeah, I read something that I was like, it makes total sense. Is that basically he wants any team that would bother to trade for him, that he has the right to veto, so then he can ask them to sweeten the pot and get something from it.
Yeah, that is kind of smart, I must say.
Yeah, and plus you get to control your destiny a little bit, because it's like, oh, we want to trade you to the Dodgers or the Cubs, and you're like, well, where do I fit in this team? Well, who's got the better chance of winning the World Series? You have at least some say in that. So it's a smart move. It makes you, from the peripheral, it kind of makes you look like a douche, but because there's a lot of teams in there where their fans are like, what the hell? Why is my team on the no trade list?
No, I know it is interesting though, and I get it. I do get it, but it is kind of funny still.
Yeah, if I read
that Giants team, man, they needed to rebuild 2 years ago. I'm telling you.
Oh, I know. And they would just try to cobble it together, and it was a terrible
gum
idea.
and toothpicks.
Yeah, they were like, we got one more World Series in us. I'm like, no, you don't. You've got one slug in the shotgun. I can take you out back and put you out of your misery.
When John Lackey has to send Buttercup to the glue factory, he's like sobbing. I'm sorry, Buttercup.
Wait, but then he's like, immediately, as soon as he sends her to the glue factory, he goes and gets another horse and names her Buttercup.
It's Buttercup 2.
He doesn't even name it 2. He just, everyone is Buttercup. And
everyone's Buttercup.
His grandkids are looking at photos and they're like, wait, who's this horse? Buttercup. But this one is brown horse and that one's a gray horse. I said it's Buttercup.
It's like a dog's journey. It's Buttercup's journey.
But then when you flip through the pictures of it, it's kind of like the opening sequence of the Marvel movies, and it's just all different stuff.
It's all just different Buttercups.
Different Buttercups. Like, that one's not a horse. That one's a pony. I said Buttercup.
That one's an ass.
That's me.
Oh, I see. Yeah, your head was turned a little bit. I see it now.
That's Joe West.
Yeehaw. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, back to the Cubs. Yeah, so it was a tough series against the Marlins. They came out on the right side. You did see some good pitching performances. Lester again looked good. That one. How good has Brock been?
Brad Brock?
Yeah.
Well, I'd say despite the whip, he's come up pretty big in a number of situations.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, where would this team be without Kinsler and Brock?
Kinsler has been really good. He has been really, really good. I've enjoyed watching his resurgence so far, and I'm almost kind of nervous because I feel like, okay, he's been so good. Is he just going to completely crap the bed at some point? But so far, he's proven me wrong every time.
Yeah, it's. I just feel like it's a kind of a miracle what the Cubs bullpen is doing because Strop is hurt. You sent Carl Edwards down because he couldn't throw a strike to save his life. Brandon Morrow might never
Yeah.
pitch for the Cubs again. Who knows? And you're riding Kinsler, you're riding Montgomery, you're riding Chatwood. Like,
And Steve
it's the most.
that guy's arm is going to fall off.
It is the most improbable. It's like the anti-Avengers. It's like the Avengers, knockoffs. Like it's a bunch of misfits that are just, hey, look, we're doing this. We're holding this together. And as of late, they've been doing a great job. I don't know what to say about that.
It's not always pretty, but they get the job done. I'll say that. It's not always pretty.
And it's funny, speaking of Carl Edwards, like he's pitched good since he's come back.
He has. He really has.
And the crazy part is he's pitched well. And let's see, what does today? Trying to look quick here. Yesterday, did he pitch yesterday?
He pitched in the game against the Brewers when he was pitching in the eighth, I believe, on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. So even after throwing how many scoreless innings since he's come back, his ERA is still almost 12.
Yeah, that goes to show how bad it was in his first stint here this year. Eesh.
Yeah, so I'm glad that he's figured out whatever mental block it was throwing strikes, because we need him.
Yeah, absolutely. The Cubs do not have a lot of firepower in terms of velocity guys, and I know velocity isn't everything, but in a bullpen, it's kind of a nice thing to have somebody that can throw hard. And Edwards, if you've watched him pitch coming back, he throws mid-90s, 94, 95, sometimes gets 96, 97, but he's had some really nice cutting action on that fastball, that last-minute just cut that it has on that pitch. It's looked really good so far.
So there's another thing I want to talk about with this Cubs team is I think it might be true Javi Baez might be having a better year this year than last year.
So far, I mean, look how big he's come up in almost every win.
And so last year he was runner-up for MVP. And I think he might be having a better season this year. But it's been fairly quiet because last year he was the man. He carried that team. Now you've got Wilson Contreras just crushing balls. Chris Bryant remembered how to hit, and he's crushing balls. Rizzo's, doing Rizzo things. Jason Hayward's been on a slump, but season long, he's been hitting the ball hard and looking good.
He's got 6 home runs already. He hit like 8 one year. He averages 9 a year?
Yeah, and that's crazy. Is that he's having a better year, but it's so quiet because of how well other guys are doing.
It is. I mean, it's one of those things where he's probably been the most productive player on this team, him and Wilson Contreras consistently. But when we were going into this season, we were saying, okay, what are we going to be watching out for the most? We're going to be watching for the rebound of Chris Bryant. We're going to be watching for the rebound of Yu Darvish, which we're still kind of waiting for. We are going to be watching Wilson Contreras trying to bounce back again. So you have a lot of these things that people are watching out for. And I'm sure we'll talk about this in a minute, but Chris Bryant looks like Chris Bryant again. So a lot of people are talking about that. But yeah, you have all that going on, and Javi's just being Javi.
Yeah, and he looks like he just fits right in this. And it's funny because he was a holdover from, the previous regime.
Yeah.
He wasn't a Jed Theo guy.
No, he wasn't. It
And
often gets forgotten.
early on, you early on in his career, it looks like he's not a Jed Theo guy. This guy might be a bust. And he come up there and just big hacks, and he thought he was just going to step in and be, Hank Aaron from his first season. And, he wasn't, and he had to go get humbled and go back down and figure things out. And he's done it. And now he looks like a Jed Theo guy. He doesn't take as many pitches as maybe you'd like him to, but he makes good contact, and he's cut down on the swings at terrible pitches. Like, what he's swinging at is something he can hit. He used to swing at anything.
Yeah, absolutely. You remember his first stint in 2014?
What was it, like a 50% strikeout rate?
I'm going to look up Fangraphs now. I mean, he showed the promise with the power because he hit some home runs, but oh boy, those strikeouts in 2014, because you remember he came up August. He hit that game-winning home run in Colorado in his debut. And during that stretch, he hit 9 home runs in 52 games. But the K rate was 41.5%.
And it's funny, he reminded me a lot of later years Sammy Sosa.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was home run or strikeout, and there was big, ugly swings, and he was swinging at crazy stuff that you're like, why in the world are you swinging that? Because even if you made contact with it, you're not hitting that like out of the park, that you're popping that up, or you're just swinging at everything. And it looked like those kind of just undisciplined at-bats. And, he's learned to stay within his means, and he knows what he can and can't hit. And sure, there's balls that he swings at that he shouldn't, but if you look, I'm sure if you did some sort of, computer analysis, you'd be like, he's hit balls in that same spot. It's not like he's swinging at ones over his head like he used to. He's swinging at ones he knows he can hit. He just might not have hit it this one. And sometimes I'm honestly saying, I wish he swung a little more.
Want to hear some interesting Javi Baez stats right now?
Yes.
So I have his page up on Fangraphs. In 2016, guess what his F4 was? If he had any guess, just throw a number out there. What was his F4? What point what?
In what year?
16. Year they won the World Series.
Over the season, the whole season, it wasn't that. I'd say 2.1.
Oh my God, you are so close. It was 2.2.
Yeah, because over the whole season, it was good, but not great. It was later in the season that he really picked it up.
Right. And then the next year, he was 2.4. He's 2.1 right now through 38 games. He is nearly the same WAR he was in 2016.
What was he last year?
5.3.
Okay.
He's 2.1 through 38 games.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, he really does look good, and he's overshadowed because, Chris Bryant powers back. Anthony Rizzo is catching fire. And Wilson Contreras has just been absolutely crushing baseballs all season long. I mean, even when he's not hitting, or even, everything is hit with power.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like his OPS still over 1.
Are you talking Baez? Or are you talking
Bryant? No, Contreras.
Oh, Contreras. Yes.
Contreras.
Yes.
Yeah, our OPS still over 1. It's it's so Baez is being overshadowed, even though he's just playing incredibly well.
And the other thing with Chris,
I feel like people only bring up Baez in conversation is when he does, if he's not doing something that's like, how the hell did he do that with some crazy slide or a amazing base running thing or a crazy tag or, a walk-off home run, that he doesn't get talked about like the other guys. And there hasn't been as many of those crazy things. It's just he's been consistently good.
Yeah, I mean, look at how big he's come up with some of these home runs or RBI doubles or whatever he's hit. I mean, when you're a 2.1 F4 player through 38 games, I mean, that's really, really telling on how he's been so far. And his WRC plus is 156. I mean, that's really damn good. And you also look at the K rate, which is 28.5. It's kind of what you expect. He's a career 28.2. Last year he was 25.9. The year before 28.3. So you expect it in that range. His base on ball rate is 5.8. Last year was 4.5. His career high was 5.9 in 17. But even if he's not walking a lot, I feel like you see him in a lot more full counts.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's been working counts, which is something you haven't seen him do a lot over the years. Even last year when he was runner-up in MVP, you just don't feel like he worked the counts. And his on-base percentage is not that incredible compared to his batting average. Like Wilson Contreras, his on-base percentage is over 100 points higher than his batting average, and Javi's is like 35 points. So he's still not drawing the walks, but he's getting the hits. So he's working those counts, and instead of taking the walk, he's getting the hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see him go the other way. If there was one thing that I liked hearing on that ESPN broadcast last night, which again was brutal, but they pointed out that he has like the most opposite field base hits in the majors right now.
And that's what's been great, is he's spraying the ball. I would love to see a spray chart of him, because he really has been. I feel like the Cubs in general have been much better at hitting the ball to opposite fields. Wilson Contreras has been doing it. You've seen the left-handed guys with big shifts, be able to hit it right up the middle, hit it over to the other side, and make hits. I feel like that has been a big plus. And,
I agree.
And it's funny because I think that's something that makes a left-hander great, is if you're able to dump the ball into the opposite field. I don't know why. I've been watching a lot of tape of Mark Grace lately, and he was like a doubles machine, and he dumped so many between left and center. Just
more hits and doubles than any other batter in the 90s. Just saying.
And he just dumped it in there. And it's funny, I don't remember. He hit it for the cycle one game. Which is weird, because he was not a home run guy. And he was not a fast guy either. So getting a triple and a home run, oddball. If you told me he got 4 doubles in a game, I'd be like, yeah, that seems legit. But so he just dumped a lot of those balls. And I feel like if the Cubs can keep trying to do things like that, it's going to be nothing but being advantageous, because if Anthony Rizzo could make those defensive shifts be a little more honest, the Cubs would be in such better position, because there's some ones that he just scalded and it's been right at somebody. How many of those have there been?
Yeah, no, that's so true. I mean, you look at his BABIP numbers year after year, and he's hitting a lot of those into the shifts.
Yeah,
if
he could keep them just even a little more honest. But they've got that hard shift. It'd be nice to see him just choke up and 3/4 swing and just dump it over to the third base side.
And you can do it. We've seen him do it before.
We've seen him do some more so this year, I think. But it's we could get that going. You would see such better production out of him, because he's scalded some balls, and you're like, there's actually a 0% chance if there wasn't this big shift that's not a base hit or extra bases.
I mentioned Javi Baez's batted ball. So far, according to Fangraphs, his opposite field percentage is 36.3%. His pull percentage is 32.7%. His center field is 31%. So look how that's spread out.
That is almost even.
Yeah, in 2016, he pulled the ball 45.6% of the time, and he only went oppo 19.9% of the time.
Yeah, it's just like he's just become such an amazing hitter. I mean, that we always talked about when he was coming up, that bat speed, and it's now he's figured out how to use that bat speed.
Right.
I don't know if he's gone with a smaller, lighter bat to utilize it, or if honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he knew that bat speed and he just sat for a split second longer to watch the ball. Where he's watching it rather than reacting to it, because he's got more time because he's so fast getting that bat around. Like, he's got unworldly ability to get that bat around. I mean, the last guy I think I saw like that was Gary Sheffield.
I love that guy's bat toggle. Can I just say that?
I remember he used to have gold-plated teeth with his initials on the front.
Got a grill.
But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of his approach is, hey, I can get the bat around. Let me get a better look at the ball rather than react. It's because he's been doing something right, and he's doing it more righter this year.
Even more righter, we should say.
Yes, even more righter. Let's see. What else with these Cubs? What about that Bodie slide?
That was beautiful. I mean, he was imitating Javi Baez right there. And I mean, great base running by him. Good call by the third base. Because it wasn't Brian Butterfield. I know he was out. Was it Chris Tenorfia over at third? I can't remember who it was, but I knew Chris Tenorfia was there coaching. But either way, it was really smart to score on that play because they lose 1-0 if they don't score right there. I love the aggressive base running. Just overall good. Love it.
Yeah, it was really heads up by Bodie. It was heads up by I don't remember who was the third base coach at that time for that game. But because I think it was the pitcher up next.
Hamels was up next, yeah.
Yeah, so you need to score on that play, and it was much closer than you really would have liked, but just an absolutely great play. And I love Bodie. He's not a superstar. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar, but I think he's one of those guys that is a good glue piece to have on a team. And
he was struggling a bit going into that game. He was really struggling, but it looks like he's kind of picked it up again the past game or two.
Yeah, and you're right, and it's nice because last year he came out on fire and then really struggled at a point. And I feel like he's one of the there's a point in a guy's career where he needs to figure out how to get out of a slump at the major league level.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the streakiness there. It's something that he's learning on.
Right, and I feel like he's starting to figure out how to get out of those slumps. And, it doesn't necessarily always have to be at the plate when you get out of it. There's guys that make a good base running play, and it just gives them that confidence. They make a good fielding play. The team around them is doing well. Anything to boost that confidence, to help to get them out of that slump, because I feel like baseball is so much mental. When you get in a slump, it's mentally you're in a slump and you don't know how to, process getting out of it. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm going to go up there and have a bad at bat, and you go up there and you have a bad at bat. And whenever part of it is getting in a positive frame of mind, and, little things like base running, making a good slide can really boost, the frame of mind that you take to the plate.
Absolutely. Because you saw after that, Bodie had a couple of hits in yesterday's game, and you hope that kind of turns a corner for him again, because at the beginning of the season, he was knocking the cover off the ball. And in the past few weeks, you've seen a lot of ground outs to short, a number of double plays, which we saw plenty of double plays in this series on both ends. But it's one of those things where you're going to have slumps. This team is going to have slumps. And, when you look at it, the Cubs have kind of been in an offensive slump all week, but they still found ways to win these games.
That's the important thing. That's what they didn't do last year.
Right.
They found ways to lose. This year, they're finding ways to win.
Some bad chili.
Let's see. What else with the Cubs? You got Ben Zobrist on a indefinite personal leave of absence. And I don't want to speculate, why, but it sucks.
Yes.
It sucks to have happen, because I feel he's important in this team.
Very.
And for multiple reasons is, it forces you to have Addison Russell up, which I still understand is if Descalso is back and you've got Bodie, why do you need Addison Russell? Let him go back down to Iowa.
Did you hear that rumor today that was talked about on Waddle and Sylvie, or at least Waddle and Sylvie reported it?
What rumor? I didn't listen to Waddle and Sylvie today.
I saw it on Twitter when I was coming from work, and basically what it was saying is that somebody heard, and this source isn't very reliable, so take this with a very big grain of salt, but somebody heard that the Cubs are eventually going to try to move Baez around on the infield so Russell could be solidified at short, which to me makes zero sense, but that's what this supposed rumor was. And again, the source was, I can't remember who it was, but people are very, very weary about it, so I don't necessarily buy it. But if that's true, I would seriously just love to go to the Cubs and just say, what the hell?
That is literally the dumbest thing I've heard all day.
Yeah, me. Yeah.
Why in the world would you move around a guy who is a freaking fantastic shortstop?
One of your MVPs,
arguably,
if not your MVP.
He was the runner-up MVP of the National League last year, and only lost to a guy that just had a career year. And he's having a better year this year, and he's helping propel you to, one of the best records in baseball. And you want to move him around for a guy that is a career like 240 hitter and is hitting 125 right now.
He has one hit.
Yes,
he has one hit.
And Addison Russell was a second baseman the first year he was here.
Yeah, you don't accommodate using your MVP. You accommodate for your MVP.
I mean, it's one thing if Baez was like, yeah, I love switching around. I love not knowing where I'm playing. You're okay, then I get it. But if that is not the case, where he explicitly asks to be switched around daily, then you don't do it. I mean, I get the guy can play any of the infield positions, and I think he could play. I think he can play every position, but catcher, maybe not even pitcher, maybe not pitcher catcher, but I think he can play any of the outfield spots because he's such a good athlete. He definitely plays third, short, and second, and any Jamo can play first.
Hey, Bryant did the other day, and he did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely differences between a really good first baseman but anybody can play first base.
Right.
I mean, Daniel Murphy played first base. That guy sucks in the field.
Look at Ernie Banks. He was moved to first base because his legs were gone.
Yeah. That's, if you don't have a DH, and that's where you put the big, slow home run hitter that you need in your lineup.
Exactly.
But that's neither here nor there.
Right.
But I heard on the radio yesterday, and I didn't confirm if this was true. I'm just going to assume it because I like the way it sounded. But if you take Cubs record from the day of their home opener to now, that they have the best record in baseball by 2 games, and the best record in the National League by, I think, 4.5 games.
And they haven't lost this series since they played in Milwaukee in like the first or second week, whenever that was.
That's incredible. Can you imagine that them being, like 6 games up in the division? Did I lose you?
They were 2-7.
Hello?
And now you're here. That really is incredible to think about.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it is the biggest turnaround that I've seen in a long time, because they looked awful those first 7 games. I mean, awful. It's
as bad as we've seen them.
Yeah, it's, you can kind of look back now and be like, oh, you sort of panicked. No, not really, because there's a difference between losing and the way that they were losing.
It was gut-wrenchingly terrible. The pitching was awful. They were off to a historically bad start with the pitching. The fielding was absolutely terrible. That's still one thing that's been kind of lacking, is that they have been very sloppy in the field. They've made some great plays, but they've really been sloppy in the field some of these games. But, I mean, you had the game with 6 errors when they were in that big slump. So it was pretty bad.
Here's the thing with the defense being not as good. I mean, Addison Russell, well, he's a good defender, but Javi Baez is a fantastic defender. Anthony Rizzo is a fantastic defender. Chris Bryant is okay. And you have Jason Hayward is fantastic, but then every other outfield spot is just okay. And, when you have Bodie in there, he's okay. You don't have a ton of elite defenders anymore, but there's no weak link. So
I'd say Rizzo is elite.
Yeah, Rizzo, Baez, Hayward are elite.
Yes.
And everybody else, I don't think there's any weak spots, but there's, because you've seen Schwarber improve. So I would say
nobody's terrible.
There's
is what you're trying to say.
no Daniel Murphys out there.
Right. He is brutal in the field.
Brutal. And so you don't have any, but it's because you don't have elite guys in more than 3 spots, there's always room for, mishaps. You'll always have an occasional Chris Bryant mishap. Because the old adage in baseball is he's too big to play third base, and he's proved him wrong. I mean, he plays a pretty solid third base, but there's always those gaffes that he has that you don't see from Baez when Baez plays third, and you don't see. I mean, I think Bodie's a better third baseman than Bryant as a fielder. But it's when you have Zobrist at second, he's okay, but he's not an elite guy.
He doesn't have the range like he used to.
Right. And then, so it's just, there's room for mistakes because you don't have a guy that can just, dial it up a notch and make these fantastic plays.
Yeah. Just some of the fundamentals I think need to be better there.
Yeah, agreed. I think they do get a little sloppy, but overall, I think the defense has been much better than it was last year.
Last year was weird. It
Last year was weird on so many levels.
It was, yes. Because you look at last year and you think of it as this big failure, disappointment, which ultimately it was from a postseason perspective. And you looked at the offense and you saw how bad it got at times, and yet they still won 95 games.
Right. They were a fantastic team, but they had some fielding issues, and the offense. What did Theo Epstein say? The offense was broken.
Yeah, I mean, there were 40 plus games where they scored one run or less.
Yeah, it was just they went ice cold because they had one guy who was hot for most of the season, and your big boppers weren't there. Bryant was a shell of himself. Wilson Contreras was a shell of himself.
Well, Bryant was hurt most.
Yeah,
of
but
the year.
even when he came back and was healthy, that just power stroke wasn't there. So,
right, unlike now. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, where new bat, who dis? Like that new bat.
Literally.
Yeah. But yeah, so just nobody else. I mean, Jason Hayward was playing terribly. Just nobody was hitting except for Javi Baez.
Yeah. Everyone else was at the Springfield Chili Festival eating Chief Wiggum's pepper chili.
I love that episode.
Mister, you're drinking a candle. You don't want to get wax in your mouth.
Maybe I do. Maybe I do. Don't quit your day job, Chief, whatever that is.
Hey, everyone, it's the big baby. Oh, this porridge is too hot. Oh, wah, wah, wah.
My favorite line from that episode is Marge. And I use this line all the time. I think it drives my wife nuts. But I was like, when she looks at the spice rack, she goes, 8 spices? Some of these must be doubles. Oregano. Or the beginning of the episode, or Homer goes, Marge, where's my chili eating boots?
They say they carved it himself from a bigger spoon.
That episode, the first half of that episode is the most brilliant 15 minutes of television ever. And the second half is weird.
But I love it still. The weirdness, I love it. Isn't that Johnny Cash?
Is it?
Doing the Space Coyote? I think it was Johnny Cash.
Huh.
That was when The Simpsons was just beyond brilliant, and they were able to get celebrities, but not just to be like, oh, we're getting celebrities because they're popular in pop culture. They used celebrity guests to create their own genius material. I mean, you took Johnny Cash and made him into a freaking hallucinated space coyote to teach Homer a lesson. Nowadays, it'd just be like, oh, we're having Lady Gaga on because she's hip and with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't even watch it anymore. But
I just go back and watch all the old ones.
I heard that when Disney launches the Disney Plus streaming service in November, that not only are they going to have multiple Marvel shows and the Mandalorian Star Wars show, but I heard they're going to have all of the episodes of The Simpsons on.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
that's true.
That is going to be the best, like $6 a month I spend.
There you go.
So what else with the Cubs? They got a day off today. Anthony Rizzo's got some back soreness, which I don't think it's really sore. I think it's more of a, hey, we have to justify sitting him in the, in a rubber match of an important series. But I think he'll play tomorrow. But you've got a series with the Reds and then a series with the Nationals coming up. And both teams are underachieving, but I think that they're actually pretty solid teams.
Yeah, I agree. You can't take them lightly. Let's say that.
Yeah, especially that first game against the Reds. You're going against Tanner Roark, who's been really good this year.
Yes, he has.
He's good. It's going to be the fun one to watch is going to be the second game because it's going to be Darvish versus Gray, and those two are combined 2-7 this year. One guy's got a 5.4 ERA and one's got a 4.15 ERA. So I think there's going to be some runs scored in that game.
Especially at Great American Ballpark. It's so frustrating with you, Darvish, because Darvish, you see the stuff is there. The fastball is 95 plus miles an hour. The movement on the cutter and the slider is devastatingly good, but half the time he doesn't know where he's throwing it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's so mental because he won't go to the fastball. I mean, you need to go to the fastball. You need to throw it. Even if you're not throwing it for a strike, as long as it's somewhere over there, the stuff is nasty. Somebody's going to swing at it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That last game he had was the most Jekyll and Hyde thing because he either looked like unstoppable, like Bob Gibson, like unhittable, or he just looked like Tyler Chatwood from last year.
I know, it's so frustrating. It really is because you don't get hit hard. He strikes out a lot of guys. He doesn't give up a lot of hits. It's just when you're walking 6-7 guys a game, that's going to cause problems. Your pitch count's going to be high. You're not going to go deep, even if you only give up one run.
Yeah, he walked everybody. There was nobody hitting him. He was just walking. And
he's walking the bottom of the order all the time.
You can't walk the pitcher. Just throw it up there and let him hit it. And then what's even worse than that is he goes 4 innings.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because last year you're like, it sucks and it's frustrating because he's injured. This year you're like, he's healthy and it's all mental. Like, I don't know how to get through to this guy and be like, just throw it. You have had a solid career. It's not like he just came over here from Japan and it's nerves and everything's new. He's been in the Major League Baseball for how many years now? Is just
multi-time All-Star Cy Young finalist. He's been here. Yeah.
Just go up there and throw it because your stuff is nasty. I mean, he arguably has the best stuff on the staff.
Yeah, no question.
I mean, John Lester would love to have that stuff.
Even though John Lester
has been absolutely phenomenal, but
and not fluky.
No, but he sometimes goes up there and, I mean, much less so than last year where he just grinded everything out. But sometimes he goes up there and just throws some witchcraft and wizardry out there. And you're like, man, like, I don't know how you do it, John, but like, if he could throw some of that nasty stuff, like Darvish just goes up there and he can throw that sick fastball, that sick curveball. And, he just gets afraid of some of those pitches.
He doesn't know where the fastball's going. And he's got a great fastball.
He's got a great fastball.
The movement, the speed, it's great. Just has to locate it.
My favorite pitch, though, is that 6-12 curveball where it just boof, and it just comes
a wiffle ball.
And everybody has the same look on their face. It's just like they're sitting there going, and this is a ball. And then they're like, oh no. And then they're just frozen. You could just see their eyes get big and they get the hands tighten on the bat and they start to move and they're like, they get frozen. They just get completely frozen. They're like, I need to swing at this because this is a strike, but I can't pull the trigger. It's amazing. It just makes everybody kind of look dumb.
Yeah, really.
Do you have anything Cubs that you want to talk about, or should we switch over to White Sox for a little bit?
Oh, we've covered a lot with the Cubs. I think, overall, just hope this starting pitching can keep it up. I mean, Kyle Hendricks has looked like himself again. Cole Hamels has been great. John Lester has been great. Jose Quintana has been very good. And, if as soon as Yu Darvish starts throwing strikes, he's going to be right there too. Just keep it up. Keep it going because the schedule is only going to get harder.
Absolutely. Got to get some little padding in there. White Sox. So they had a good road trip. They went had a nice road trip. You're still seeing good things from Yohan Moncada. You're still seeing good things from Tim Anderson. And the best part is, well, I mean, arguably is either Elo Jimenez is starting a rehab assignment, so he's going to be back soon. But you've got Lucas Giolito having back-to-back stellar games.
Yeah, he looks great. He really does.
The only thing that worries me, I mean, I'm not taking anything away because he's legitimately looked fantastic. I don't know the count from last game, but the first of those two games, he only threw 3 pitches out of 105 pitches or whatever he threw that weren't fastball or changeup. So that's like bullpen type numbers, where it's all fastball, changeup. So you worry a little bit that people are going to watch film and see that it's all he's throwing, but the fastball and changeup have looked great. So if he can
changeup, especially,
that changeup has been just a killer. I mean, if you listen to a montage of the strikeouts, it's that changeup has just been the killer pitch. But if he can work back in that third pitch, fourth pitch, back with confidence, whew, and it's awesome to see because you need, if you're the White Sox, that's the beacon of hope for you. You see that you've got a lot of bats that are going to be fantastic. You've seen that. It's the pitching that you're just like, I don't know what we're getting. You've got a lot of arms that are still in the minors. You've got arms that are injured. You just lost Carlos Rodon to Tommy John.
That's tough.
That is tough. And so Lucas Giolito just looking fantastic is a beacon of hope for you because you're like, all right, we got one guy. Now we just gotta, out of our, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever other guys, if we can get 2 other guys and a free agent, we can, we've got a solid rotation there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Right now, you want to groom who you can. You're going to have Dylan Cease coming up soon. You have Lucas Giolito coming up. Unfortunately, you're not going to have Kopech until next year. Unfortunately, you're not going to have Dane Dunning for a while. Probably not till, late next year? And he probably won't be in the majors yet. But Carlos Rodon...
They said they don't even expect him until, at earliest, the second half of next year.
Right, I was going to say, because you got to go like a whole year with Tommy John, and, when do you think he does come back? Who knows? Again, like what you said was best case scenario. It could be later, I don't know, but you have arm after arm in the organization, which is nice, but you still don't want to keep seeing them get hurt.
Yeah, that's the thing is some of these pitchers got to develop if you're going to put yourself over the edge, over the threshold. You've got to have some of these pitchers come up and really look good. And Kopech, you have all the faith in the world that once he comes back, he'll be one. Lucas Giolito is looking like he could be another one. You have faith that Cease is going to be one. That's 3. Rodon, who knows what you're going to get out of him. But if he's your 5th guy, then that's not so terrible.
No.
So if you give 3 and Rodon at the back and you bring in a free agent, that's, you're all right with that. That's something you can build on.
Absolutely. It may take a little longer than expected, but you still have a lot of promise with it.
And you still don't know what you have with Reynaldo Lopez either.
No, I mean,
he's a guy, last year, a lot of promise. And this year you've seen a few glimmering, shiny examples, but there's been some rough ones. But right now he's pitching great, like today.
Yeah, you just hope that he can kind of find consistency. I think that's probably the most important thing here.
Yeah, and the thing with the White Sox starters is the innings you've been getting out of them. If the Cubs could get their starting pitchers to pitch the innings that the White Sox starting pitchers have had, that'd be a beautiful thing.
Well, I don't think the Cubs are really an issue. I feel like they're going 7 innings pretty consistently.
I guess if you average it out, because Kyle Hendricks always goes a lot.
It's really been Yu Darvish that hasn't been going deep when you think of it.
Gonna have to go back and look at Q's numbers too. Is Johnny Lester always goes as 6 2/3 or whatever. Hendricks is a guy that can go all 9 because he just throws so few pitches.
Mm-hmm.
But right now,
when he pitched the Maddox, that was pretty special.
Yeah. Right now, Reynaldo Lopez is 5 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 1 hit, 3 strikeouts against the Indians. So it's a solid game right now.
Yeah.
So I like him too. I feel like you're seeing enough where from these young White Sox arms that you don't want to give up hope by any stretch.
No.
It's just you need to get some good luck with health.
Right. You got a lot of great arms. You need the luck.
Yeah, there's only one guy that I would give up on, and I think they sent him
Carson
back down.
Fulmer.
Yeah, didn't they send him back down?
They did.
Yeah, he's the one. He's a bust. Done. He's not a Major League Baseball player, and that's all right because if you're going to fail on one, I guess he's the one because he's a little bit older. You've got much younger arms that you can control for a lot longer financially, contractually. Carson Fulmer, if he was good, would be due money, earlier on. So I guess if you're going to have one fail, he's the one, but you've got Carlos Rodon, who's not looking so hot, but you've got a ton of other guys that you feel confident and just the numbers game. And we talked about this before when the White Sox were making all these moves is, to turn this from, stockpiling, players and talent to actually winning is you need numbers because not everybody's going to make it. No matter how good they look as a prospect, not everybody makes it for whatever reason, whether it's injury, whether it's they can't take that next step. They won't all make it. And so you need numbers. Yep. And you need some luck. And the White Sox got the numbers because they got huge hauls for some of the guys they traded away. Now they just got to get some of the luck and they got to fork over some of the money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got plenty to spend. Your payroll is tiny, and I still think they should go after Dallas Keuchel. I mean, why not? Why not at this point, especially now?
Is your number 5 pitcher, Banuelos? He's awful. I mean, yeah. I feel bad. You watch him out there, and he just looks like he's going to cry, and he's just getting beat up. Go get a Dallas Keuchel. The guy has won a World Series recently. Go out and get him. It's, we're this far in. I'm sure he would pitch for a 1 or 2 year deal. Is take him and start to win some ball games. You're at the point now where you need to just start winning ball games, learning how to win. He can, even if he doesn't have the stuff that he used to have, which I'm sure that's part of the case because he's still sitting unsigned, but you bring him in. He knows how to win. He can bring you that sass, that walk the walk. And if you're the White Sox too, he's already had beef with the Cubs. Isn't that kind of like a bonus?
I guess to the meatball it is, sure.
But sometimes that's what you go for. You go for the lowest common denominator. If You bring in like an AJ Przinsky. He brings in the meatballs.
Lotso meatballs.
Sometimes you gotta have all the meatballs in there, and you can put some good sauce on there and some nice bread on it, and the other accoutrements, and it just makes for a better meatball. But you still need the meatball.
Runaway meatball.
So yeah, I really think we're at the point where I think the White Sox can do good things. Is the front office going to give them the tools to help them out?
I think they have no choice but to.
I hope they do. I hope they bringing in a Dallas Keuchel is not going to cost you a ton of money. You got plenty of it.
Plenty of it.
And even if you just sign him for the rest of the year, if he doesn't want to sign a multi-year deal, is bring him in and just these guys. He stabilizes your rotation because you've got some stinkers in there. He stabilizes your rotation and he brings in that swag of, hey, you guys are young and brash. You got Tim Anderson throwing the bat. You got Yohan Moncada crushing baseballs. I won a World Series. This is what you got to do.
Yeah.
And he becomes that gruff old, pitching leader that you need.
Yeah, compliment Tim Anderson's, energetic youth. It would be really good for them because Tim Anderson keeps hitting. He keeps being not only a force for the White Sox, but a force for baseball in the public eye. You see what he's doing with the donations that he's making for every stolen base, which is really cool. You're seeing a lot of great things from him, and add another guy that could bring something good to your team because the more the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that's the right way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially since you look at your rotation. Ivan Nova, he's got a 6.5 ERA. He had a good game against the Blue Jays, but that's a
he has one good game and then 3 bad starts and then like 2 decent starts and a couple more bad starts. He's nothing more than a glorified James Shields at this point. He's a guy that can throw strikes and eat innings.
Yeah, Dylan Covey's got a 6 or 5 ERA. And then Banuelos, he's got almost a 7 ERA.
Yeah.
He last pitched on Thursday and he went 4 1/3 and gave up 5 runs. To a light hitting Cleveland Indians team. So it's, you feel like you can, they're a decent team right now and it's an easy to win division. It's like the easiest division to win.
I seriously think the winner could be sub 500 or just at 500.
Yeah. If you can stabilize that rotation a little bit, then suddenly you give yourself a chance to win. And that's the name of the game, is let these guys taste a little bit of winning, and it's going to propel you sooner to the where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last thing I want to talk about with the White Sox is their catcher McCann. When the hell did he learn how to hit?
I don't know, but he's been like one of their best players.
I mean, he is like, the exit velocity is just amazing. I think he's one of the tops in baseball with exit velocity. He's just absolutely crushing the ball. Every time he hits it, he's hitting it hard. And it's uncanny because that's not who he's been in his career.
No. I was kind of surprised myself. I'm like, wow.
And it's funny because he doesn't have that many at-bats. He's got like 80 something at-bats. Why is Wellington Castillo getting at-bats?
Yeah, Wellington Castillo's really been struggling.
Yeah, is let the guy who's batting, what's he batting now? 382 with a over 1 one OPS. Why not let that guy keep hitting? Because he's a good defensive
might as well
catcher.
keep him in. Yeah,
He's a good defensive catcher. He was always an offensive liability, but the guy is just hammering balls.
left and right. I mean, good for him because he was a career backup in Detroit.
Yeah, good for him. Good, the good pickup on the White Sox. I wonder if they could flip him at the trade deadline. Because I don't know if you think this is a fluke and you can do something with it. Strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I guess he's on what, a 1-year deal?
I think he's 2-year deal.
2-year deal? Okay. I wasn't sure if it was 1 or 2.
Yeah, let's see. Contract.
Because he was in Detroit a couple of years now, so...
Why can't I find this? That's how unimportant he was. There's.
Where are you looking at?
I Googled.
Well, I'm on Spot Track. It's 1 year, $250 million. He's arbitration eligible next year.
Okay, so they got arbitration eligible, so they can, he's under control. So yeah, if you feel like this is iron is hot and this is not who he is, flip him at the deadline, get something for him.
Yeah.
So I think that you're seeing some good things out of the White Sox. This is
absolutely.
Yeah, this is a turning point here, I think. It sucks that Rodon news, but Eloy's coming back. Giolito's looking good. You've got a great start tonight by Reynaldo Lopez. McCann is crushing the ball. You still have Anderson and Yohan Moncada hitting well. These are all good things. When was the last time you as a White Sox fan had that many good things that you could talk about, be positive about at the major league level?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. So enjoy it. It's only going to get better.
Yeah, it's only going to get better. I'm hoping it happens.
A lot better.
I'm hoping it happens soon enough where you have the Cubs and the White Sox still in windows at the same time.
I think you will. I really do.
The Cubs, I guess both teams still have to play it smart in order for that to happen. The Cubs have to extend that window a little bit. And the White Sox, they're going to have to put some money into expediting this. But yeah, I think it's possible.
Absolutely.
And quickly looking at the stats here is the Twins. The Twins started out hot, and they've still got a good record, but I still don't think they're that good of a team.
No, they're going to go on a big losing streak. I'm telling you right now.
The
White Sox can make it back to first place. I truly feel that. I do.
I mean, if you look at their 7 games out, and that's a lot, but I think the Twins will come back down to earth. And we always talk about this, is Major League Baseball, if it does one thing well, is it brings it is so good at bringing everything back to the mean.
Look at Seattle. They're sub 500 again when they got off to that great start.
Yeah, I feel like the Cubs had a hand in that too.
Yeah, but still.
So the Twins, they're not a 641 team. They're just not.
No.
And so they're going to come back down to earth. And the White Sox, they're almost 500. That is a good sign. If the White Sox, the front office, if they can just give them a little boost, bring in somebody, just that boost sometimes is that you get from new blood. And I've heard Major League Baseball players talk about this, is that after the trade deadline, when they get a new player, kind of, they get a jolt of life that kind of propels them. And even if it's not real, it's, perception. I feel like if you sign, somebody that's still on the streets for the White Sox, that just gives you that boost, and you don't have to give up any of your capital to
Right.
get that. So I guess the last thing I just wanted to bring up is tomorrow is the NBA draft lottery. The Bulls have, I think, a 12.5% chance to get the number one overall, to get Zion Williamson. And I forgot, like a 40% chance to get a top 3 pick.
That's what Tankathon says.
And yeah, but then, Michael, did you hear Michael Reinsdorf on the radio this morning?
I think I heard a snippet of it.
If that guy,
if we won half our home games, that's
yeah, that was one of the dumb things he said too. But one of the ones is, all right, so instead of spinning at the positive, is look at the chance we have to get the top 3 pick. He goes, well, we got a 52% chance of getting a pick that's lower than our seed of 4. So we have a better chance of going down than we do up. I'm like, that's why we want Horace Grant representing us. Get out of there, Michael Reinsdorf.
Yeah.
You negative Nancy. Just say it positively. Yeah, you know what? We feel really confident because we feel our front office drafts well, and we've got this really good chance of getting a top 3 pick. And why can't you just say that? And we all know it's spin, but just it's positive spin. Just spin. Give us the spin. Don't give us your negative Nancyisms.
I'm so sick of listening to that team, whether it's the front office, the ownership, Jim Boylan. I'm just so sick of it.
Pete Myers, though. But you know what, though, is after talking with Big Dave last week and reading that article he wrote, which is blown up, I just see the Sun Times comment about it too. I am so rooting for the number 2 pick.
I didn't see that.
I want Big Dave wrote an article about Ja Morant and then the number 2 pick, and I so want the number 2 pick. I want to see Ja Morant and he be that one glaring piece that the Bulls are missing. And at that point after that, it's, hey, everybody else, you got all the tools. Everybody else just has to play to their potential. We've given you all the tools, given you all the pieces. Like, I'm excited about as good as Zion is. I'm so excited about Ja Morant, and it made even more so is because I forgot who it was, but they were talking about Zion. They're like, listen, Zion is going to be the number 1 pick, and he looks fantastic, and I don't see any way he fails. And they were like, but I could see his career being Larry Johnson as a comp. And I started thinking about it as, Larry Johnson was like my heyday, and he was an all-star. He was, he was a face of the NBA. He did all the commercials as a grandmama, and he was a very good basketball player, but he wasn't an elite basketball player. He was that like second level. And, if that's what you're telling me Zion could be, I'm even more excited about Ja Morant, because the comps that I've heard about him, you're just like, you start salivating. You're like, oh man, a real point guard.
Yeah, I mean, he would be a great fit on this team. I truly believe that. And if they get number 2 and that's who we end up with, I will not be disappointed.
No, me either. So I'm going to try to go to that draft party tomorrow.
I'd love to go, but I won't. By the time I get out of work, I probably won't get there in time.
Yeah, I'm working from home tomorrow, so I'm actually still in the city. It's going to be what time
I do not have that
Yeah, I just gotta see what time I can wrap things up. Like if it's a fairly slow day at work, yeah, I'm gonna sneak out and go. If it's crazy busy, then I'm gonna be sort of stuck. But I'm excited. I want to go and have Dave introduce me to Will Purdue, and then be there to hug everybody when we get the number 2 pick and we get Ja Morant.
Looking at the draft lottery like the day before, it makes me think of Doctor Strange and Infinity Ward saying, "I looked forward in time. I saw 14,605 futures." How many times did the Bulls win the draft lottery? Once.
Yeah, but we all know it's we'll look at Doctor Strange right before they announce it and like, is this the one? And he'll just hold up one finger. And it's our one. It's our one. This is where we defeat Thanos. We get Ja Morant.
Right on.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, I think this is going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please make sure you hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or the TuneIn app. Follow us on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. Please share this podcast with anybody you know that likes Chicago sports and listens to podcasts, because that's how we grow the show. And thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.